got to pass. Hello, my name is Marco, and I'm here to respond Shad and to Captain Context, Matt Easton. And this is all for fun, and I think you're both right on sticks. But something you might not know, not all sticks are made equal. What if my stick is better than yours? It's a play on words, but actually it's not about the stick at all. Because as Shad has demonstrated, he has found the resources and he's pointed out that, yes, sticks have been used in war. There's clubs and all sorts of different things, and they've been used very successfully. Sorry about that, there was a bunch of squirrels running around in the background. No green screen here, just lots of distractions, lots of squirrels. They'll get what's coming to them. Yeah. So, sticks, staves, clubs. When armor's introduced, yes, they are almost useless. Almost useless. But you can say, what about this stick and what about that stick? I really don't think that that it matters what stick you're using. What really matters when we say the word context, what matters is who's using the stick. And I'll tie that with firearms. Or with firearms and sticks. Throughout the medieval period, throughout all of the days of sticks and stones and all of those things, it didn't matter what stick you used. It really didn't matter what sword you used. It mattered who was using it. Just like the bows. Some people could shoot up to 200-pound bows, probably even higher. How is that going to change things? Well, when we bring in a firearm, yes, there's crossbows, but when we think of firearms, now everyone is shooting a 200-pound bow-ish, or a 1,000-pound crossbow. Everyone is now made equal, if you will. Now, prior to firearms, when we were fighting with sticks and stones, there are great legends. One in the Bible is King David. He goes up to Goliath and he has a staff and a sling. Does he kill Goliath, the giant, with a sling? Possibly. But what we do know is when Goliath falls, David runs forward, drops his staff, gets Goliath's sword, and chops his head off. Was David pretty proficient with his things? I think he was. Down the line, I'm sure he learned how to use a sword, and he was mentioned in a lot of battles. So we'll talk about Samson. Yes, I know some of these legends are a little bit out, but this is the legend. Samson took a donkey's jawbone and supposedly slew 1,000 people. It could have been less. They could have dramatically boosted the number, But according to the story, 3,000 of his own people came and says, hey, we got to hand you over. Samson says, all right, just don't hurt me, and I have no beef with you. Just hand me over to the Philistines. They do. Samson breaks free, or slips free of the cords, and puts a whipping onto the Philistines. So that's a story of one person taking up a unusual weapon and doing a great feat with an unorthodox weapon. And we see the knights, Shad showed us, using clubs and things like that, probably to great effect. And with what Matt Easton was saying, is when you have so much armor, you know, this is what you practice with. You practice with wooden sticks. I want to clarify a point here. When we go to medieval warfare, or warfare in the Middle Ages, or warfare in all of the Stone Age, Bronze Age, we're not talking about, let's put it this way. The Greeks were kind of the first ones to make a game, a sport, if you will. And in the States, in America, and probably in Europe, we watch the Olympics and we see amazing athletes. And those athletes probably could whoop, you know, a casual co-ed team any day of the week. We see guys, I forgot his name, but hurling javelins, just like beyond, it's just so far, a superhuman strength almost. And they've actually had to make javelins heavier so it's not so dangerous because of that one guy. Let's see, who's it? I'm going to butcher his name, but it's a famous samurai, Misishu Mayoto. The story doesn't matter, but according to the legend, he used a boat paddle, carved it into a mock sword, and won one of his many duels. He was supposed to be undefeated and very revered in Japan. He's a legend. He could be. So what I'm saying is some of these stories of old may have grown a little bit. They may be in the leagues of Hercules, you know, as great exploits, and they may have grown just like Shamgar, who used a cattle prod, or what's the proper name for it? According to the Bible, it's an ox goad. Basically, a cattle prod is for, I'll put up a picture, but it's a stick. It's a stick. And he slew hundreds of people with it, and it's a farming tool. And we see, in times of great desperation, mothers, ordinary people, lifting up cars to save other humans. And is warfare, this is not just an Olympic game. This is not just the people are their best of the best. This is the Olympic athlete, if you will, the best of the best in a crisis, usually in a crisis scenario where they are fighting for their lives, fighting for their families' lives, and they are doing amazing things. So, when we consider the staff, is it a good weapon? Or could you use it? Could you and I use it? I would not go to war with the staff. I'd rather have a poleaxe or a pike. Maybe a sword and a shield. You know, something like that. But someone, if you put this in the hands of Babe Ruth, Mike Tyson, you know, that caliber of an athlete, it's a different story. If it's a different story, they could use a club just as a flex, or if it's just what's laying around. They can use, you know, there's stories of people, you know, grabbing your axes and pitchforks. Are they the ideal weapon? No. Can someone in a severe traumatic experience in a battle rage setting pick up one of these, pick up an ox goad, pick up a donkey's jawbone, pick up a staff or a club, and take on hundreds? If they are exceptional and if they are inspired, I believe they can, and I believe they will be effective, even though the weapon itself is not effective. The person, I'm gonna get you, squirrel. What are these days? What are these days? You shall not pass! Hello, my name is Marco, and I'm here to respond to Shad and to Captain Context, Matt Easton, and this is all for fun. But the person makes the difference. The person makes a difference, and there's another story of a Viking, a Dane guy with a Dane axe. So he's using a Dane axe, but he's taking hundreds. He's standing on a bridge, and he's taking on hundreds. And that's until one of the wise guys, one of the guys who are a little bit smarter than the others, goes underneath the bridge and stabs him in the unmentionables. And he dies. So there's freaks of nature that can turn this into a deadly weapon. You know, for most people, hand to hand, you know, that's a severe disadvantage. If you go against Mike Tyson, Cal Sanders, it's a whole different story, because those guys are legends, if you will, and I believe they could take on hundreds if they were given a staff or a pointy stick or a jawbone, and they were under extreme duress. And yeah, so with that said, magic, firearms, the cool thing about firearms is that, well, maybe it's not the cool. It's a matter of perspective. If you want the biggest guy with a club to be king, welcome to the medieval ages, okay? Welcome to the Dark Ages, welcome to the Stone Ages, Welcome to the Iron Ages. Welcome to Alexander's time, where the biggest guy with the club rules. Okay? With a firearm, some people are exceptionally quick, have skills. I am not one of them, but you can see, you could go to YouTube and you can see the fastest draw. And they're ungodly fast. They're so fast, you'll make your mind spin. You're like, that can't possibly. I have an angry squirrel behind me. Anyways, they're ungodly fast, amazingly fast. But do you know what? Each one of those rounds, no matter who shoots it, will hit just as hard as, you know, as one of David's slings, just as hard as or harder as a 1,000-pound crossbow or 200-pound longbow. Just as hard every time. Every time. So, not everyone is an Olympic athlete. Not everyone is a squirrel. And speaking of firearms, it's on. Okay, where was I? So not everyone is that. And it takes a amount of strength to wind up a crossbow, and it takes a amount of strength to march and to carry weapons. But for your average guy, carrying a musket, every one of those rounds is the equivalent of the Olympic athlete, the hero of old. Every round they fire is pow, full power. Look at Shad, see his progress with his longbow. It takes time, and it's inspired me out. You know, it's like, wow, I had no idea how heavy an actual warbow was. And when you see Todd's workshop, you see him demonstrate the guy that can actually pull a 200-pound bow, and you see the muscles on his back. That's an exceptional human being. An exceptional human being, like Mike Tyson, like Larson, was it? Or yeah, I think. But the guy that can shoot extremely fast, very accurate. Those are not normal people, and then we can always improve. And I'm going to try to improve myself. But when we look at the staff, ask yourself, you know, in some people's hands, this might be a toy, a practicing sparring implement. Not effective at all. But so what? And my hands, this is about as, you know what, I don't train with swords. I will try to learn a little bit of sparring. I've done some knife, studied some knife fighting. Not sword, it's never really needed to. Never really needed to. Right? So, my hands, I might be better off with this. Really. Or with a knife. Put this in Matt Easton's hands, or in Shad's hands, that's a whole different ball game. This is a time where it's mass butchery. It is a time where if any place someone would be inspired, it would be to achieve great feats like the mama lifting a car off her children. That is the time where you will see feats, human feats that are legendary, if you will. So yeah, I'm a writer primarily. This is mostly for entertainment and to get your attention. And if you would like to listen to some of my audiobooks, which are absolutely free, check them out.
Chapter 1.
Yeah.
Helvisti. Nora took in a deep breath as the ship sailed out of the harbor and tugged at her long fur overcoat that blocked the cold wind as she turned for one last look back at the city. She would miss Takroon and its cozy, bone-white wattle and daub buildings with their shaggy thatch roofs. She watched them fade away until all that could be seen was lush green hills dotted with flocks of sheep and smiling shepherds that waved at the ship as it sailed on by. Both sheep and shepherds seemed to be so happy. Those lovely green whirling hills seemed so quiet and peaceful. Day by day she watched the landscape change, from pleasant, lush green hills to dark, gloomy, and jagged granite. These mountains were not green at all. Any speck of color was the beginning of a pale blue glacier peeking over the jagged ridges. Nora grimaced. Even the pine trees near the shoreline seemed more black than green. The crew trimmed their sails as the ship slipped into the busy sea lane that led to their final destination. Her determined sky-blue eyes gazed up at the Helvisti lighthouse on the snow-capped mountain that overlooked the city and large port below. The city stood out like a gem wedged between two seams of granite stone. Nora suspected the brightly colored buildings of randomly assorted, vibrant purples, blues, and bright greens were to make up for the perpetually oppressive, gloomy gray clouds and harsh, jagged, snow-capped mountains that sheltered the city from the Baru waste beyond.